Welcome to another edition of American Patriot, the 3% Podcast. I am your host, Charlie01, but before we begin, if everybody could please rise, face the flag, put your hand over your heart or salute it, and say the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, as I said in podcast at the beginning of this week, I am back, and hopefully I'll get back on the full routine of podcasts. And there's been a lot of stuff in the news since I took a little break, and let's cover that a little bit. First and foremost, of course, everybody, I'm sure, is well aware of the situation in Oregon, but just a brief summary. So there was a march and protest at the beginning of January to protest I'm calling it double jeopardy, but what it was two of the Hammond family. The Hammonds are ranchers in Harney County, Oregon, and what it was they were doing a back burn on their land because I believe what had happened was the BLM was burning brush around their property, and they tried doing a back burn to keep their property from burning as well. And in the process, some of the BLM, the land that the BLM claims that they own, got burned, and they were charged for it. They were charged for terrorism for it, and thankfully the judge at the time looked at that and went, that's ridiculous, and gave them a sentence of, I believe it was only like a few months, and so they served their time. Well, then a new judge came around and didn't like the fact that they didn't serve the minimum sentence for terrorism and demanded that they go back to prison for the minimum sentence, which I believe was either 3 or 5 years, but either way it was unjust. So a lot of Patriot groups, including the Pacific Patriot Network, and I know 3% United Patriots were at the protest. Well, among them also was the Bundy brothers from the Bundy Ranch down in Nevada, Blaine Cooper, John Ritzheimer, and I believe Pete Santieri was there as well. But that evening, after the protest had ended, Eamon and Ryan Bundy, and I believe one other brother, along with Blaine Cooper and John Ritzheimer, decided that they were going to move their protest to the Mallard Wildlife Refuge, which is, I believe it's about a half an hour, 45 minutes outside of Burns, Oregon. And they pretty much took over the refuge because all of them were armed. It technically was illegal for them, but the refuge had no occupants, and I've heard, I haven't verified this officially, but I also had heard that they were told where there was a key to access the locked door to the center. So that's how they got in. But anyways, they had been in a standoff per se. It wasn't really a standoff. I consider it more along the lines of an armed, peaceful protest, because they were armed, but they weren't threatening anybody or anything else. But either way, they were there, and then last week, on January 26th, the whole ordeal sort of reached a head, and a truck with Eamon and Ryan Bundy, along with Lavoy Finicum and Ryan Payne, and also Brian Buddha Cavalier, was on their way to a speaking engagement that, as I have been told by somebody who also works on the security for, or worked on the security team for the Bundys out there in Oregon, they were invited by the sheriff of that county, and I don't believe it was actually Harney County that the speaking engagement was in, but they were on their way to the speaking presentation, and federal agents from the FBI and also Oregon State Police attempted to pull them over. They had, I'm sure that you've probably seen the video by now, but they had them pulled over in the middle of the highway, and they should not have run, but they had taken off after probably, I think it was about 5 minutes that they sat there in the middle of the highway, and they finally left and kept going towards where they had planned to go, and the law enforcement had set up a roadblock to avoid a spike strip. Lavoy had swerved and went in the ditch. Well, as soon as he had went into the ditch, he had jumped out of the vehicle. His hands were very visibly in the air. And since the only video that has surfaced so far has been the FBI's video from a surveillance plane in the air, you can't see for a fact, but there's lots of speculation, and it's hard to say. I've watched the video repeatedly, and he does lower his hands somewhat, but it could be to try to steady himself in the snow, because he went from, it looked like almost a full sprint from the vehicle with his hands up, and he was confronted by two officers, one from behind the vehicle and one from the middle of the woods. But he either was trying to steady himself, or, as blown up images are now surfacing and showing, it almost appears that he was shot in the side and was trying to sort of react to the pain and lowered his arms, and when he did, that's when they shot and killed him. And in my opinion, until everything comes out right now, it definitely looks like he was killed, and if it's true that they shot him first, he was definitely murdered. Eyewitnesses, right after it had happened, before the video had come out, there had been several different stories. There were stories that he was pulled from the vehicle and put on his knees and shot in the back. There were stories that he was surrendering and shot in the face. I couldn't tell if he was shot in the face. It looked like it was more body shots than anything, because you can see that he's moving around in the snow, but either way, the FBI is trying to pin it all on Oregon State Police. Also, in the stop, Ryan Bundy and also Ryan Payne, one of the Bundy's bodyguards, also took wounds and were taken to the hospital in Burns to get treatment. Now, currently, I believe there is 8 total that are sitting in jail, awaiting sentencing, without bond, consisting of, that I know of, Eamon and Ryan Bundy, Ryan Payne, Brian Buddha Cavalier, along with Pete Santilli, and John Ritzheimer, who left the refuge, I believe a couple of weeks back now, and turned himself in down in Arizona. But that's the current situation as far as that goes. It's a sad, sad day when we lose such a valuable member of the Patriot community when Lavoy was shot and killed. Our hearts go out to the Finicum family. And if you've been following our website, we still have, even though the FBI has released this video, I still urge you to check out our call to action and contact your elected representatives and Senate members and demand that all of the videos are released and that all members of law enforcement that were involved in the shooting be investigated thoroughly. But please check that out. I'll put a link in today's show notes. And as of right now, there is still 4 people inside the refuge, refusing to leave, and how this is going to turn out, it's hard to say, but that's the current situation. It sounds like the Patriot, or the Pacific Patriot Network, they have issued a call to action to support them still, and to investigate the Oregon State Police, the FBI agent in charge of the traffic stop, the corrupt judge. Here's the lessons that we've learned from this whole situation. Number 1, the complete lack of planning and preparation in the execution of this protest at the wildlife refuge. There was no planning. They had claimed that there was about 3 weeks worth of planning, and if there was 3 weeks worth of planning, it sure did not look like it at all. But the lack of planning and preps. They were days after they had taken the refuge. They were asking for supplies and food. I love liberal media saying that they were asking the government to provide this. They weren't ever asking the government to provide them with food or anything for this. They were asking us, the Patriot community. Unfortunately, this whole situation has split the Patriot community like crazy as well. But There was the lack of planning and preps. On the plus side, there has been just an awareness of the massive corruption going on in Harney County, Oregon. The judge that required the Hammonds to go back to prison for this crime. It's just, there is so much corruption in that county. The county sheriff that wants nothing to do with anything involving his county, the BLM. I'm sorry, but that is like the lowest elected official right there. That, or I should say the highest elected official right there that can control what happens in that county. And they don't want anything to do with that county. The judge of the county specifically said that he does not, or he purposely avoids knowing what's going on with the federal government in the county. I mean, the whole thing just reeks of corruption. And hopefully, at least hopefully this has wakened people up to the corruption in the county. I've heard that county law enforcement has used a lot of intimidation tactics on its people and on people that are even just traveling through the county, including the press that was hanging out at the refuge and everything. I heard a quote from one of the people that were there with the press that they were followed and pulled over by sheriff's deputy, and then questioned about what was going on at the refuge, even though the reporter repeatedly told them that they weren't going to give them any kind of information because it was none of their business. It was a breach of the Constitution. But, so we've learned a lot about the corruption in Harney County. As I said, the Pacific Patriot Network has issued a call for action for a peaceful detainment, arrest of everybody that was involved in the traffic stop of the Bundys that resulted in Lavoy's murder. The American Patriot, the 3% stance on it is we're calling for a stand-down order, more along the lines of a wait and see. We're not rushing in because, frankly, rushing in is what got the whole situation in the state that it is. Maybe, if the Patriot community had been, even if the Pacific Patriot Network had been brought up to speed and aware of what was going to transpire at the refuge and everything, maybe if they had asked other patriots for support prior to the whole standoff, things would be differently. But right now, we have to sort of wait and see what is going on, what is everybody's moves, and we can't just go rushing in because, like I said, that's what happened this last time. So right now, AP3 is monitoring the whole situation very closely. We have people on the ground watching what's going on, working with the Pacific Patriot Network. but for now, we're at a stand down. One thing that was brought up to all the leadership of AP3 from the head of our Colorado chapter was pretty much a new operating procedure as far as big events like this. When there's a call to arms, we go armed with video cameras more so than, I mean, we're not saying go defenseless, but if we have a lot of video cameras, a lot of videos running, YouTube now has the streaming ability. If we can stream video and make people aware of what is going on multiple channels at the same time, and just put the public's eyes on the federal government and on these corrupt politicians and everything else, we can more effectively combat this corruption. I mean, the government should be fully transparent. And the last presidential terms have all been very non-transparent. So the more video cameras that are rolling, the better. As we said, we're not saying that we're going completely unarmed. If you're a legal concealed carrier and can legally conceal carry, we definitely advocate that. Nothing illegal, of course, whether it's by government standards right now or by the Constitution. Unfortunately, we have to deal with the crappy situation that we're in right now until we can get these unconstitutional gun laws overturned. But that is one thing that all of us leadership at AP3 have been discussing and talking about. So I personally think it's a good idea. In other news, Michael Moore is protesting the lead in Flint, Michigan's water. Just a little background on that. The water in Flint, Michigan has been found to have higher than allowed lead content in it. And what it's caused by is back in 2014, the city of Flint switched their drinking water supply from Detroit water lines to the Flint River that runs through the city to cut costs, because Flint is pretty well a dying city. Same with Detroit, but Detroit at least had clean water. But to save money, they did this. And the governor of Michigan, Governor Snyder, is being fully blamed for this right now, even though supposedly, according to the press, the mayor of Flint had said that at the time that he was switching over the water, because they did a big ceremonial switch where he pushed a button and everything, he was very hesitant about it because they were warned before they did this whole water switch that they had to treat the water because the pipes were leaching lead because of lead pipes. And they were told that they were supposed to treat the water, and they never planned on treating the water. But the city council and the emergency manager for the city that was appointed by the governor and the mayor were fully aware of this, but yet they still went through and switched it. Now, I am not saying that the governor of the state is not to blame. He has willingly turned over all of his emails, I believe all of his documentation that he was given on the whole situation to investigators, and it was him and his emergency manager that did do the switch, but since this has come out, and Michael Moore and Cher and Matt Damon, Hypocrite of the Year, have sat there and calling for Snyder's arrest or calling him to resign, along with the mayor of Flint calling for him to resign. I mean, it's... Since then, what is it? I believe it's been... They just released another article saying that there's about 12 other cities of the same size, bigger and smaller, in the state of Michigan that are at elevated lead levels in their drinking water as well. And those have been that way for... Some of them, I believe, it even said over a decade, which would put them in the previous governor's term. And nobody's making a big deal out of that in any of those cities and towns. Another article that I had just read this morning also is saying, now, mind you, these articles are actually coming out of very liberal media. The city of Flint has been a liberal Democrat hotbed for decades. The last non-Democrat mayor was back in 1975 for Flint, and the unions have pretty much run Flint, along with Detroit, for decades. But the article that I read today, the Flint Press, who is also an affiliate of MLive, which is the big news service in Michigan, obtained documents showing that the Flint city, pretty much their people that went through and tested the lead levels in the water had not tested the tested the water properly. They, by EPA standards, one of those make you feel sad agencies, but by their standards, they were supposed to test the water in households that were known to have lead piping, and they were supposed to test the water for the lead levels this whole time. And it had just come out that they hadn't been testing these households to that standard, and have been testing houses with less lead levels and then passing those tests over to the state government. So the state had been given false information as to the actual impact of how bad the lead levels were in the drinking water. Now, like I said, I'm not taking all the blame off of the state or the governor, but in this case, it almost appears that the governor was unaware of the correct lead levels and the lead levels that they were given may not have been to the point where the treatment was required. Either way, lead in the water, not good. But there's been talk that the militias have been marching on Flint as well. I can personally tell you I don't know what militia has been protesting in Flint. I know that at least one or two of the militias in the state of Michigan have been in Flint, but they've been in Flint not protesting, but donating water and delivering water to people in need of it, delivering bottled water. So most of this is coming from liberal media about militia taking over Flint, and as I said, it's false to this point. A little bit older news. Iran had captured a U.S. naval vessel. I believe it was 2 months ago now, and I was told that the sailors on the vessel, at least the commanding officer, talked very easily to the Iranian military about what they were doing there and stuff, instead of the standard, their ID number and their name. But that's an older news. Other things that have been happening. Anonymous is supposedly supporting the Hammonds and asking for the truth on Lavoy Finicum as well. The stock market has been doing horrible over the past few weeks. Not a big surprise. That's why, as usual, make sure that you're preparing for, just a very bad time. Whether it's unemployment, whether it's an actual collapse, or whether it's just a standard snowstorm. Please be prepared. I mean, if you can look at the snowstorm that hit the East Coast, I believe it was last week now, and shelves just emptied in supermarkets. We are living in a just-in-time economy right now. So if you don't have food and water stored up in your house in an emergency situation, you may be out of luck. You can't eat bullets, you can eat beans. So start stocking up. I think this episode is running long enough. Just a side note, to sort of help out with the demand for video, we will start posting YouTube videos now. They're not going to be impressive or anything, but we are going to start posting the podcast in a YouTube video as well. So that way, if you're on YouTube, you can watch our podcast on YouTube. It's not going to be most likely it won't be actual video footage. It'll be more along the lines of you'll be listening to this podcast with images scrolling through. But hopefully that helps people see this podcast or listen to this podcast even more. I do appreciate all support that you guys can give. And by that I mean questions, comments, email them in. Podcast at APIIINation.com. That's podcast at AP Roman numeral 3 or III nation.com. And I am going to try to get a new episode up every week. Actually, I would really like to get 2 episodes up every week from now on. I want to come back at this full bore. Check out our sponsors, and also check out our new social platform, We the People Revolution, or WTPRevolution.com, with all of the censorship and blocking and banning that Facebook is starting to put on Patriots. Came out with this website as a new online presence, or a new home for our online presence. You can even send me Charlie01, and 01 is spelled out, a friend request on WTPRevolution.com. And until the next episode, I thank you and keep your preps dry. This is Charlie01 signing off.